Hey, this is Dr. Mike. This is part two, promised of the live stream that if you were watching a minute ago, like, well, when's he coming back? I was trying to uh, do the live, the first one I did on my phone, and then I was going to go on my PC screen and we were going to watch a video together. I'll figure out another way to do it. But anyway, this conked out after trying a couple times, and so did this, actually. Maybe it was the universe trying to say, what are you doing, man? I'm trying to stream on YouTube. This is like the new public square. And I think we got to explore that. Public square by meaning like, hey, we can come together, some guy can get on a soapbox and rant, and there'll actually be people that will stop and pay attention. Like you, I had 100, let's see if I can bring it up. I had 111 people viewing. What did I talk for, like 15 minutes? And I've been doing it a lot this week, but I'm otherwise just only occasionally on. But I'm looking to evolve, if you're just checking this out, like, well, what's this about? A living philosophy I'm calling ultra being. We're in the best expression of ourselves. And of course, it can be time of day, or if I'm going to go out and do something or meet people or take charge of something that I'm responsible for making happen, like this video. Maybe next time I'll dress up and actually have a script, and I'll have some backdrops and things like that. Yeah, I'm going to work on the hair part for sure. Well, this is all kind of what the work's about, like sort of living through our perceived images, or at least how we hope or wish we were regarded, and what those considerations are. Because it's a big challenge for people to sort of relate to their own narcissism and ego and whatever that would be. So I kind of figured out maybe a way that we can get out of that story and actually basically let the ego go. Not to say that you're never confronted by it, or there would be situations or instances, but for the most part, I'm pretty much ego free. People can say whatever they want about me. I'm pretty much going to go, that's your perception, because that's what I've learned how things are. And it could be true. And then in that way, I may need to adjust and shave. So that's the reality of it. It doesn't mean that we evade responsibilities, although many of us can be very successful in doing that, at least for a certain length of time. And then there's another period in our existence where we have to reconcile for things or not. And we suffer the consequences or pain of not doing with things that are inherent to our nature. It's like, this is who I am, this is what I want. And to be aware, which is what the last talk was, of our TWA, which is thoughts, words, and actions, the flight you take every day. What are my thoughts? Like, what am I thinking? Have a little bit of a check-in. You could journal, you could meditate, you could just take a moment out, reflect on things. This is called introspection, and that's what we're going to talk about the IMORE formula. If we could imagine, and making use of this public square, and maybe I'll dress up or rant more next time holding signs, what is this ideal for you? Like the best version of you. As you can imagine it, in any condition or situation, that perception of yourself, I've named the ego, which is basically the selfie of the mind. So ego versus ego. I've got an old talk on that from a couple years ago on YouTube. I'll put the link somewhere. Anyway, you can go to drmike.org to learn more about me. So otherwise, in the future, I'd love to have more of a website or maybe mini course, and these ideas, it's a condensation. I do have a website for that, for my writing, and it's called grandtouridea.com. You can take the grand tour of ideas, grandtourideas.com. So the IMORE method, is there something that I could use or put into practice? Dr. Judd was one of my teachers that I studied back in the late 90s, early 2000s, known in the tribal world as Happy Face, Life Food, and many other books. With his partner then, the Annie Judd. Hold on one second. Can I mute myself? 1 second. There we go. I've been talking too long. This is my second video. Yay! The IMORE method. So it's introspection is about, so I use acronyms, IMORE. So IMORE. I'll put this on grandtourideas.com later. I'm talking about it for the first time right now. Well, I just noticed I had notes on, and I wasn't sure if I reread it. That's another acronym. I'm pretty sure subconsciously I did. So it begins with taking inventory, like, who is this I, and taking stock. And I can create maybe whether it's a self-test or what would be a personal inventory, sort of like a little guide journal that defines these things or looks at it. That would be interesting. I wonder if there's something like that out there other than for grammar school kids. It's just like, who am I? And this is introspection. And we can look at, as I talked about in the previous video, the MVP, really being clear if we're going to have a mission, what's giving you meaning? And is there a vision? And what's the value for you actually living that vision? And do you have purpose? Are you living a life on purpose? And that's your passion. So it's whole brain, right? So it'd be well thought out. The words you're using would be whole brain, well thought out before expressing them. And what you're actualizing in the TWA, thoughts, words, and actions, right? Then are at least a contributor factor in the new reality that we as a community in conscious conversation would endorse or at least consider. And in this regard, we really would give it whole brain analysis, very equitable, fair, dynamic, considerate. And what would result? That's such a refinement filtering process, you really have to call it divining it, because it's coming from its truest essence. And you've checked it out, at least in the ability to where you're at in your consciousness, where we're at in the world today, and society, and how aware we are. It has to begin with you. So not to say that you have to be a soldier, but you definitely could be an ambassador, an emissary for this work. And all you have to do is be a bit more consciously attuned, right? Be aware. Who is showing up? This is the introspection that begins the IMORE process. It leads to I-awareness. I-awareness is simply just being attuned to. What is it that I'm sensing and feeling? TWA. Gosh, man, what am I thinking? What are my thoughts? What are the quality of those? The quality of my words that I'm using? What am I saying? And oftentimes repeatedly, how am I acting? TWA, thoughts, words, and actions. Wow. So awareness comes in this regard, you know what I mean? This is the fruition of just, for a moment, being in the gap, the space between thoughts, and having a sense of things. This would equate in some of the, you could say, ancient teachings and traditions as simply self-realization, self-awareness, right? It could be the thinker in Greece at the statue, sitting on a podium, to someone that's just in the park, whether they're tossing kernels to birds, certainly not breadcrumbs. There's a seeding of this in the wisdom of how someone is present, and it's not being presumptuous or having a pretense about something. It's simply that you're alive and appreciating the moment, and all that you have to give is really love. Otherwise, it's just simply emptiness that's present. There could be full attunement and attention to this person or the company you're keeping, the community that you're engaged in. And as a social scientist, occasionally you take notes and you come up with the IMORE thing. I do that a lot. I think I'm at the stage now where either I have to talk about it, like do public talks and lectures and hold community conversations, do more of this streaming. And in this way, we're going to create the M on the MORE process, which is motivation. And it's a mindset, right? There's I want more, and there's I more, I am more. So it begins with taking inventory. It's introspection and this imagining the ideal. What is UBE3? What would ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment, ultra be for me? And just sit with it. There's a knowingness that is so profound. It got you a long time ago. You just have to, it's a channeling. It's tuning in like a radio station. Get it right. This is the practice of what this is. So we can identify this ideal in the IMORE model, the I being inventory and introspection. Towards this ideal, we have motivation, at least a mindset that can consider this. That's giving, in the MVP portion, meaning that maybe can evolve to one's mission, at least in our case, marketing of the idea. So IMORE. And whatever obstacles we would be facing, we were looking at the ideal outcome. The obstacle could be a lesson, either what we're not doing right yet, or we're obviously not aware of processes, or the ability to have the breakthrough, or what my ex-friend would call tangoing, Like it takes two to tango. So I should say extra, just long. I haven't talked to that person in ages. So there's a lot of probably friends that you think like, oh, it'd be really great to connect. I want to finish the IMORE process, but this leads itself to, or lends itself to, well, who would be the emissary for this work? Who would promote it? How would it live beyond? This would be part of our long-lasting legacy. And if you're watching this and you're attuned to this, you identify with it, you relate to it, well, this is a self-liberation movement. And it's vibrant in communities because we show up in the community, either as a contributor in a conversation or hosting it. And it could be a dinner party to maybe watching an enlightened movie together, or getting together at the library for a book group, or it would be about some of these ideas. And the friendship fellowship, this idea of reinstigating friendship connections with people from your past that you cared about, but for whatever reason you lost touch. Maybe it was before internet and social media and having their email, or phone numbers change, people move, and you just lose track, or you just lost touch because we move on in our lives. But you think fondly about that person. You think, oh, it'd be so incredible if we could reconnect. And for some situations that might not be realistic, others might be challenging because you didn't leave on good terms, or there was something that needed to be worked out, money was owed, or man, you were a bad person back then, or they did something was sort of like put them on the out. Man, you can't talk to that person no more. So man, we could work through those things and not carry that weight of the past. We create sort of the dynamic of what self-liberation stands for, right? Getting out of our stuck stories. And a friendship fellowship would be the embellishment of this. This would be a community that supports this work. So going back to the IMORE, but the idea would be that this is one of the teachings we would present, and you just simply watching this and applying it as principle is part of the work. And so how can we keep a connected community? And it would be about these, right, conversations that's going to help liberate us. Because, I can help you see yourself maybe perhaps in some circles or better perspectives and positioning. Even though you might be aware of it, it's admitting it, confession therapy, or just being able to go, oh, thank you for saying that. Because we no longer are resistant to criticism, and we understand that it's to help raise our consciousness. And if one person can see it, I'm sure others can too. So it's really important to be attuned and to be listening. So that's how we get over our obstacles. And then that relates to achieving our outcomes. So where are we in our IMORE process? IMORE. So introspection. So this inner understanding is this exploration towards the ideal, right? Taking inventory. And motivation as a mindset, because we're driven by this, because there's a meaning, something that's really more than this, just at this core, to as a kernel to help it like a plant evolve and grow. This becomes something that just motivates you. And yeah, there could be challenges and perceived opportunities in the obstacle. That's the O in the IMORE process. It relates to outcomes. Then what's desired here? What's our ideal? And how can we evolve it so it becomes our outcome? Yeah, there are obstacles, man. We've got to talk, baby, or we got to deal with that, or wow, whatever it is, And the outcome has got to be the goal. And then how do we identify resources? That's in the R in the IMORE process. That these resources probably are at our fingertips, right? We just need to tap into it. It's the relationship aspect. It's how we can recognize it and apply it, because they're around us, but how do we utilize it? How do we become more responsibly attuned to it? And that's a key thing, right? Our responsibilities. And then the E in the more is execution. People maybe like the word execution so much, but I think it's okay because we're looking at the evolving the E3, UBE3, ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment. So there has to be an enlightened action, and in the flow, I'm examining its execution. If it's what they call P2E2, that you have a plan, but before you do the plan, you've prepared it. That's the two P's, plan and prepare. And the E2 is that you do execute, but you evaluate. How's this going? So IMORE simply is inventory, motivation, challenging as opportunity obstacles to get to our outcomes, and to relate to things as resources and take responsibility for them as you can. To make it all work in our execution, you have to have a good time method. And the TIE principle in this world is another acronym, just to end things up here, TIE, is really make sure you have permission and you're invited, that this is a time that's welcomed, right? And it's identified, whether you're making the appointment or you just show up, like, hey, you got a few minutes, or you're here for this hour or whatever time. We're going on 15 minutes right now exactly, that this is how long the talk's been, that this has been a good relationship tie for you, that we had a good time and it was insightful, right? There was some good insight here and it was of interest to you. You have to find out with the other people that you're going to relate to this. It's like, hey, you guys got time right now? Great. I talked to you about 5-10 minutes about whatever this would be. This insight, would it be of interest to you? Be aware of your intrigue and what's going to be something of interest to them. And then know your intentions, right? Be really clear about that. And the E and the tie. So time, interest, and what is going to be this enlightened experience. To really have some sensitivity to the energy, what's happening in the room, what's happening with the person. So you're reading it, not that you have to go every quick second, but sort of like it's going to be an allowing process, because if it's very interrupted because it's a bad environment, it's not going to work. So you have to make sure it's a good tie, time, interest, and energy. All right, more of it at brand2ideas.com. I'm drmike.org. Thanks so much for tuning in. I want to do more of this. Great. And the new book for people looking for addictions to quit is Stop Smoking Therapy, right? Or Quit Smoking Therapy is the .com. Hey, that's a good domain, right? QuitSmokingTherapy.com. And also TodayStopSmoking.com, which is a HALT process, HALT. If you're a smoker or know somebody, you can send them there to haltmethod.com that explains the process. And we help people quit. And then now we can evolve our community into a friendship fellowship, and now something that we can all support each other in the best way that we can. Loving it. Let it go, baby. drmike.org.